So what exactly is healing and why do we need to heal? Most people would say, I didn't have a traumatic childhood. I had a great childhood. I had great parents. I didn't go through any trauma. What would I possibly need healing from? But unfortunately, that's not how it works. We all have healing to do. How it works is when you're born with, say, let's call it a clean brain, okay? But your brain is like a self-programming program. So when you're a baby, the more it perceives itself and how it perceives the world and how it perceives other people, that all gets programmed into the functioning of that person's life. So let's say, for example, you're 2 years old and you're left in your crib to cry, okay? Doesn't matter what the reason is, doesn't matter at all. But in your little baby brain, you are feeling scared, you are feeling alone, you are totally dependent on the person looking after you. So because of that, your programming is going to protect you from that feeling again. It's going to write a program to say what that means. Remember that nothing means anything apart from the meaning that we give it, okay? So your brain is going to give it a meaning. Your brain is going to say, this means I am alone in the world. It means I am vulnerable. It means I am unsafe. It can be any of those, it can be all of those, it can be something completely different, okay? This is the programming that your brain writes into your functioning. So then life goes on and you get all kinds of programming. You're being programmed all the time, especially at that age up to the age of 7. So let's say at the age of 7 or 8, you're at school and your mom forgets to pick you up. In your little 7-year-old brain, you've got no concept of mom had a crisis at work, or mom is stuck in traffic, or there was an accident, or whatever the reason is, it doesn't matter. Your little 7-year-old brain is going to internalize that because it needs to protect itself from that pain that it's now feeling again. And it's probably felt it a couple of times, or at least a few times during those last few years as well. But now it's feeling that pain again. And now it's got a bit more of a vocabulary. So your little brain can tell yourself, this is because I was naughty yesterday, or it's because my mom doesn't love me anymore, or it's because some random reason that a 7-year-old can think of. It might not even be conscious. It probably won't be conscious. It'll be an unconscious thought. And that gets programmed into your brain. So now as an adult, you get into a situation that creates that same feeling. It's got nothing to do with the thought. It's everything to do with the feeling. So you get into that same feeling, and then your brain activates a trigger. And this becomes your trigger. So it's any situation, it absolutely does not matter what situation creates this feeling. When your body gets this feeling, your brain goes, activate crisis and stress response. So your brain activates fight, flight, or freeze mode, okay? So first one is fight mode. You get angry. Let's say this specific incident makes you really angry. You're in fight mode, okay? Or you can go into freeze mode, which means you go into pause. You can't function, you can't think straight, you don't know what to do next. You're in limbo. That is freeze mode. It's also a stress response due to a feeling that your body is being subjected to. Fight, flight, or freeze mode. So flight mode means run. I got to get away from the situation. Whether you're going to fight, flight, or freeze depends on what your brain thinks is the best reason to deal with this stress that is now being triggered. So this is how you go around in life. So now as an adult, you have random situations that trigger you all the time, and you have these major reactions. You can't step back and have a response. You have reactions. So let's say, for example, your child doesn't do their homework, and you have this major reaction. I told you last night you need to learn. You were playing games. You didn't listen to me. You're going to fail this year. What are you doing? You're actually programming your child. And this is how broken people make broken people. Because if we don't go through the healing, we're going to live in reactions. And we're going to pass them on to our kids. So that programming that you're now creating in your kid is, my mom doesn't love me when I'm not doing things her way. Or I'm a failure. Or I'm a loser. Or I'm stupid. That kid is going to internalize that the same as you'd internalize the incident of being left at school all alone. So it doesn't have to be a major incident. It doesn't have to be a majorly traumatic incident, although it does work the same way. But it can be any little incident that creates these beliefs in your brain, that creates triggers in your brain, that creates overreactions. So now if you're interested in healing and you're interested in being a good parent to your children and fixing the next generation, then you need to go and do your healing. You need to go and look at yourself. Start getting curious about your reactions. Think about those things. What's keeping you up at night? What is really bugging you? You know, things that really like aggravate you, make you really angry, make you feel like you're stuck or you're in limbo, things that make you run away. What are these things? And you need to go and think about it a little bit. Go into it and really investigate it. Just get curious. Remember, healing is a journey, not a destination. You're always still going to be triggered to some degree. But when you go and investigate your triggers, then they lose their hold on you. It's almost like you're disconnecting the little wire in your brain. So then you become more aware of things and you can actually step back and you can say, hold on, why am I having such a major reaction about that? Let me give you an example. The other day, my husband said something really stupid and it so annoyed me. It like didn't really just annoy me. I got angry and I was thinking, what is this? Why am I being so triggered by this? It wasn't so significant. It's not such a big deal. Why am I giving such a big meaning? So I went and thought about it and thought, you know, what is it? What meaning am I giving this? What does this mean for me? So then I figured out when somebody's being stupid, especially somebody who's close to me, it feels to me like they're not on my side. It feels like they are not in my camp. So I'm like, okay, all right, this is interesting. So what does that mean? So that means that I'm alone and it means they don't have my back. So I'm like, why does somebody need to have my back? And then I'm like, because if somebody doesn't have my back, then I'm vulnerable. So in my programming, being vulnerable means I'm literally in danger. And therefore, if somebody does something stupid, I am in danger. Now, hearing me say that makes absolutely no sense. But my programming is written that way. So my body perceives it as danger. So I go into fight mode. So now I'm angry about something so silly because I had a reaction. So the same with your kid not doing their homework. Now, if you've gone through your healing and you've gone and thought, why is this triggering me so much? Why is this such a big deal for me? Then you can go back and you can say, why did I have such a big reaction about this? And you go and talk to your kid and actually really listen to him. And you'll probably find out he's being bullied at school, or he feels like a loser, or he feels stupid, or something. And you need to go and make him be okay with that and not be the bully. You know, help him get some really good programming going. Teach him how to respond to things and not to react to things. So how I explain this to people as well is, it's almost like if you were a house and you had this basement that you never knew you had. Okay? Every incident that happens in your life that's traumatic or causes you pain, that version of yourself, you go and stick it in the basement. Because you don't want to be identified as that. That was not a nice feeling that you felt when you went through that. You don't want to be that. So you do everything in your power to be the opposite of that. So if your trigger is being weak, then you're going to do everything in your power to be strong. You're going to show people how strong you are. If your trigger is being insignificant, remember you don't only have one, you have lots of triggers, but there's normally one main one that kind of themes out to all the others. So if you're insignificant, you're going to go to great extents to show people how significant you are. So normally what we do is we block out this basement from ourselves and especially from the world. We don't even know this basement exists, but there's all these little hurt kids in there. And like it's almost like they're banging on the door sometimes and you just want to ignore it. You don't want to hear them. You don't want to know about them. You don't want to identify with them. You don't want to, they shouldn't be there. They need to go away. You need your pain to go away. But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that. The only way to make it go away is to go and be the parent for those kids. Because your parents didn't have the tools we have today. They had their own trauma, which is what we call generational trauma. So the way they were brought up, they brought you up that way, or they overcompensated. So they brought their issues onto you, and you created issues again. And they had issues from their parents and their grandparents. And so it's been passed over, this way of thinking and this way of hurting each other. Remember, hurt people. So sometimes they have all this pain and they don't know what to do with it. So they're hurting everybody around them without meaning to, but they don't know how not to. So you can't even blame your parents. You can't go and make them feel guilty about it or go and get them to own up about it or anything like that. You need to be the parent now for that child that you were. So the way to healing is when you discover this this thing that you believe about yourself, I am insignificant or whatever, you need to visually go and fetch that little kid out the basement that you put it in and sit with it and give it a hug and just be there for it and tell it that it's okay. And it's not such a bad thing to have that as part of your identity. It's not something that you can make go away. If you accept it, then you'll feel there's such a freedom that comes over you. And when you find these core triggers, it's always the most vulnerable one. So you have to ask the question why, or what does this mean, about 7 times before you get into the deepness of it. And when you find it, it's like an absolute vulnerability. It's almost like it's like a release. Like the tears will just come flowing out of your eyes because now you've suddenly seen something that you didn't see before. And in that moment, it's really easy to go and get that child out of the basement and to just give it a hug. It's okay. You're allowed to feel that. You're allowed to have that as part of your identity. It doesn't make who you are, but it's okay that you went through that. So healing is really, really important, not just for us, but for the future generations. And the world is expanding and the consciousness is expanding at such an enormous rate at the moment that it almost can't not happen. It's everywhere. If you start tuning into the algorithms of healing, it's going to come up everywhere and you're going to see it everywhere. And it's going to be so overwhelming you can't ignore it. So really make an effort. It's so worth it. You will see if you just focus and get a little bit curious about your overreactions, it can make an enormous difference in your life and in the next generation especially.